Yeah, hello everyone. So today I'll tell you how to deploy your machine learning models using the Fast API framework. So assume that you have a model ready. So someone has to make use of your model so they can get value out of it. So today I'll just show an approach. So first of all, we have to complete few installations like Fast API. I'll be using a virtual environment pip-env. You can use your own. First let us install Fast API. So once Fast API is completed, we can install UVCon server. So basically we have to start a UVCon server to launch our application in the browser. Next is your UVCon. Sorry, it is UVCon standard, right? So your API will be deployed here. Once it is done, we can install scikit-learn, and that would be the final installation. Scikit-learn. So once installation is completed, we will first create a Python file where we load our model and just see if we're able to pass the parameters and get output from it. Yeah. So my model is going to predict interest based on the principal amount, rate of interest and number of years. So it will predict what the interest would be. So installations are done. Let's go back to PyCharm and let me first create a Python file. Let me call it as predict interest. Here let me first import my pickle file. Let me also input warnings. I can provide some warnings. I'll just say warnings dot filter warnings. Let me ignore all the warnings for now. So next I will be creating a function called predict interest. Assuming that I have passed my principal, rate of interest and time period, it will predict the interest. Now what we should do is first we'll load a model. My model is already saved. I have saved my model here, and we can just load it, or just say model is dot load. Let me load my model. So I'll have to open it. I'll read it as binary, and once my model is loaded, let me just call my predict. I'll call my predict function by passing. I'll make sure that it's going to be a two-dimensional array, so you'll have to pass it accordingly. Let me pass principal, rate of interest and time period, and then you're done. Just return your interest. So let me, now we have to test it out. I'll use the magic function. So if I want to explicitly call this Python file, I'll have to use this code, and here I will call the function. Let me say equal to this one. um, Let me say principal is 1000 rupees, rate of interest 5%, and time period is 2 years. Let me print it out. Yeah, so everything's done. I have done some imports. I have filtered warnings, and I have actually loaded my model, and then call the predict function, and finally return the simple interest. And I'm explicitly calling it here. Let us run it and see what is the output. ppnv ppnv run ppnv run. We can yes, so it is pretty fine, and we're able to invoke our function. And next step is to actually create your API. main.py. Let us complete a couple of installations. Fast API import fast API. That will be the first installation. Import UVCon server, and yes, we'll have to validate our inputs. We'll have to import file and base model, and very important, we'll have to actually import this file which has the is called in your model. Just say predict. Yeah, so next we will create an object of fast API. Let us create a fast API, and then we'll actually create our API. To create API, just say you use this object app and just send a post. Okay, send a post, and since we are entering inputs to the API, we'll have to put as post. Just say it's called as API slash, yeah, we can say predict interest. So this is going to be our this one, and we will interest predict, and we have to do one more step here. Inputs. We'll have to create a class. Interest inputs. So what you have to do is, before this thing, you have to create a class which will derive from the base model. Here you define your inputs. Actually, what is going to be your inputs to the API? I will say principal. Principal is going to be float. Rate of interest, it's again going to be float, and your number of years. It's also going to be float. Let's keep it as float. So I have defined my inputs using this class. I create an object, and I'll have to access all the inputs. Just call this thing principal. I have R, which is rate of interest, and finally your time period T dot number of years. So I have got all my inputs, and I have to finally call my function. Okay, it will be interest 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 is equal to what? We will have to call this function here and pass all the inputs. P, t, So you have called the function. Now you can finally return our value. Okay, just written as a JSON file. Just say interest predicted is what is the interest? This is, it's written a list, so you can take the index 0. We can just say index 0. So final step is to call the API. We can, in this step you will have to start your UVCon server. Just say uvcon.run. Where you call your server, you just apply this app where you created the object. You say app and specify in port that is available. Let me say 8000. Yeah, so hopefully it is complete. Everything is okay. I have imported Fastapi UVCon, created an object of it. I am declaring all my inputs. Principal is float, all these variables are float, and I am actually creating my API and then define a function which is going to call my function predict interest. This is, I'm creating an object of it, and I'm getting all the values entered in the browser, and I'm passing it to the function that I have declared here. So it's written in list. I'm just taking the index 0, so it gives me only the what is required. So let's run it and see. It has started the server now. Let's run it and see what's happening. I'll have to get the Swagger UI. And you can enter, you can just try it out and enter the values which you want. 2000, just say rate of interest is 5, number of years I'll say is 2 years, and it says interest predicted is 206 point something, but I can reduce this to 2 decimals. I can just format a little bit so it prints only the required number of digits. You just have to say what can we say. We can just format it to 2 decimals, 2 decimal points, and call this interest function. Sorry, the format you have to call. And specifying this format when it will print only 2 decimals, and looks like I have not missed anything. Let's run it again. We can just refresh the server. So we can save the inputs, refresh the server, and specify the values, and let's see what it is printing. Yes, it is printed. Index predicted is 206.00. So this is how you deploy your machine learning models using a Fastapi framework. Hope it was clear. In case you have any doubts, you can please put down your comments and I will respond it. Thank you very much for watching this video.